Here we go.
Hi, so hello and welcome to everyone for another edition of Chats with the Centre for Health and Wellness of Earth. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome today Jane and Seth from the KCR, Kinetic Chain Release Academy. I won't go into my experience, my detail, except so much to say that these guys have really changed my life. And I think that what they're about to present to you, what you're about to hear, will be life changing for anybody. So we'll chat a bit more about my experience, my case study later on, I'm sure. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, John.
Thank you, John. It's wonderful to be here.
No, fantastic. So yeah, I mean, as I said, I've had a life-changing experience with you guys, and I've also just completed level 1 training, and I would advocate it to anyone. And maybe you can just give us a little bit of information on exactly why, because you guys rock. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Would it be okay if maybe Jane just explained a little bit of backstory to your listeners, and then we get to share your experience? Would that be okay?
Absolutely, please do. Floor is yours.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. My name's Jane Wardlaw. I'm the CEO of the KCR Academy. I was married to an amazing man, Hugh Gilbert, who created a protocol we call Kinetic Chain Release, or KCR. We were together for 16 years, and we traveled the world teaching people how to do this protocol so that they could help other people bring their bodies back into balance. Unfortunately, in 2019, Hugh passed away. And since that time, my business partner, Seth, and I have taken on trying to realize Hugh's vision of healing the body, healing the world, I should say, sorry, one body at a time. The protocol is a really, really easy and simple one to learn. One of the gifts that Hugh had, although he had quite a background in physiotherapy and a number of different modalities, and basically it was his life's work to create KCR. One of the gifts that he had was the ability to bring things very simple. And that's what he's done with KCR. And that's why it's such a brilliant protocol, because it is simple and it's really, really easy to learn. And that's what we're here to talk about a little bit today.
Exactly. And as you know, John, it's a return to the body, which is one of those things when all of us have traveled for so long as energy workers, light workers, in my background as Buddhists, and then suddenly to return to the body, to bring it back into balance. And the protocol is simple. There's 23 steps, and you work all the way around the body, doing these exact mobilizations. There's no thrusting, nothing dangerous. It's gentle. And what happens to the body is once you've completed this circuit, this chain's put back into place and the body stands straight, because there's this thing called apparent leg length difference. I knew nothing about this before I met Jane. I knew nothing about a lot of things before I met Jane. And I learned that so you see this, if our whole body out, and we may not even know that, and we're wondering, why do I have sciatica? Why is this aching? Why is that aching? And then once your body is freed from this through this protocol, which is what Hugh is about, we don't treat symptoms, we just do the protocol and the body restores itself. But once the body's free from pain and suffering, then you can get back together with you and your life and with your spiritual journey. And John, I mean, please share your experience for this, because it's absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I mean, I'm conscious that this isn't about me, it's about you, but this is really a part of the story and really embellishes the amazing work that you guys are doing. I was thinking back, I actually have Kelly to thank for my introduction to you guys, because Kelly put me in touch with a guy called Harry Rhodes, who who recommended me to you. So Kelly immediately said, you have to talk to Harry, and as a result, I came down for my first appointment. No, I didn't really know what to expect. It was uh, the one thing that inspired me, that really piqued my interest, was the fact that when I spoke to Jane, firstly, she was completely and utterly authentic. And she said, you know, this is an extremely complex case. I really don't know if we can do anything, but we'll do our best. And when I spoke to Jane, she said, well, because it's such an interesting case, I'll actually assess you myself. Now, Jane teaches now. She doesn't do many consultations as far as I'm aware. So I was kind of anticipating that she'd do an assessment and refer me to a local practitioner. However, when she said, "Do you want to go through the protocol?" I was like, "Heck yeah, I absolutely." So she put me on the bed. She measured my apparent leg length difference. It was an inch, as I was expecting. And we went through the process. And the first thing I noticed was it was so gentle. You know, all of the manipulations, and I could feel the spiritual side of things too. So I could feel everything physically and spiritually, and I injected my own sort of energy into that, and it was just an amazing feeling at an amazing location in an amazing environment. You know, so the scene was already set. You know, when we got to the end of the treatment, Jane then put me back in position and measured my legs, and we cried. We absolutely cried because,
Yeah.
you know, I was now level again for the first time in 38 years. You know, and for me, walking out of that clinic, having hobbled in, was just the most incredible experience of my life. You know, I mean, it was. I'm grateful for everything I've learned as a result of my apparent disability, but that day was really one of the best days of my life. And as a result, firstly, I walked up to the praying hands of Mary, a mile up a mountain, slowly. You know, I'm still learning to walk again. But that was an amazing achievement. And then I attended the level 1 training course, and you guys are amazing. Seth, you're an amazing teacher. Lots of NLP going on there, and a lot of different techniques and really positive empowerment movements. And yeah, I would recommend this to anyone, because it's not just a physical change; it's an emotional. It's a psychological change and a reset, a reboot. And one of the things that also interested me so much was how useful it is even for children and toddlers, you know. And you have some great stories on the case studies that you've done, and we could talk for. I mean, I've talked enough now. We could talk for days, literally. But I mean, yeah, thank you so much. It's been
Yeah,
incredible.
I was gonna say, can you guys mind sharing a couple of really interesting case studies or some great stories of what's happened with KCR and your clients?
Absolutely. I'll hand over to Jane for this because, you know, she's 20 years in, you know, she's had a lot. But I just want to say for both of us that you know, it's what is you find yourself crying a lot. Because I guess people in like us do anyway, because we're open. But when it never ceases to amaze us how it actually works. It does what it says in the can, you know, time and time again. But I mean, do you want to what do you want to do? You want to speak to the children, or do you want to speak to adult? What would you like to speak to?
Well, maybe the first I could speak to is John's particular case. Like he said, I don't do a lot of hands-on treatments anymore. And when somebody comes in and you get to see the simplicity of just applying this protocol and you see it work on that first occasion, it just reminds me of how special this really is. And it's such an amazing experience to watch it affect somebody else's life like that. So, John, thank you for having that trust. to come to me and allow me to do that protocol on you. That was a very, very special day for, I think, for both of us. But yes, as we traveled around the world, we've had many, many stories, and it's hard to pick just one story to tell. But so many of the children really, really respond to KCR. They love it. A child, it's really, really a special gift to be able to work with a child. They have to want to get up onto the table. And children have an amazing ability to know when something is going to be good for them. And they oftentimes will almost push their way onto the table. They want to be first even before the parents or whatever. It's such a rewarding thing to see. We've worked a lot with children that have a variety of different labels on the autism spectrum, from one end of it to the other end of it. And we've seen so much change in their behavior. I think of one little fellow down in Mexico. This was many years ago. We had been invited into an Autism 1 clinic. And in that situation, we were simply part of a process of trying to see what could be done to help these children. So at that time, Hugh was treating. And so we were brought into this clinic there. And there was a little fellow over there that was very
stimming. He was
very stimming. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. He was bouncing up and down on one of those physio balls. And as soon as Hugh made the gesture that he wanted to treat that child, the little guy put up his hand and said, no, he didn't want to be treated. So instead, we put mom up on the table and let her experience it. And to watch this child change as he watched his mom receiving that treatment was such a powerful experience. Partway through it, he came over and he had settled right down. And he came over and he very gently put a blanket across his mom and then whispered in her ear something, which of course we couldn't understand because we didn't speak Spanish. We later on realized that what the child was saying is, the door is opening, mama. What we didn't understand why there was so much emotion around that experience was because up until that point, that child had not been verbal. So those were some of the first things that he spoke. What happened there? Well, we can go into all kinds of things about what happened, but that was a place where we started to realize the strong connection between a mother and a child. So I say that simply because when we don't get to treat the child, if the child hasn't willingly come up onto the table, if we can treat one of the parents, oftentimes that will shift the child enough that then they want to come up on the table and get treatment. Once they've experienced it once, they tend to start asking it for it almost on a nightly basis, and some of them even call it CPR because they just know it's letters.
And that was one of the things that Hugh wanted, was for families to be able to practice on families, which is why you can learn KCR to the annoyance of a lot of medical professionals, and we won't go there, because without any anatomy and physiology background at all, and it's taught so simply, but his idea was, his hope and his dream was that families could actually help each other. We all fall on our butts at some point. Of course, especially when you're little, we're all going to hurt ourselves and quite possibly knock our hips out slightly, whatever it could be, and we're going to go out of balance, I mean, we love working with parents and children. Obviously, a majority of people. Sometimes it's A-class sports people, and it's one of the things that Kinetic Chain Release does is that once the body's back in balance, honestly, guys, the core strength is explosive. It returns so quickly because they're having all the physio and having all this, but no one knows how to do that. And there's this thing in the middle called a shotgun test where you test for this core strength, and there's a muscle energy technique in the middle. It's okay to share that, isn't it? And then you return to it. And honestly, I've almost been snapped like a twig on a couple of occasions, by diminutive female, sports person.
Well, and the thing is, once the pelvis is aligned properly and working the way it should, those muscles in our core can all work to their full potential. And so that's why it shifts things so quickly, because it's just a slight adjustment, very, very gentle, that realigns all those core muscles and allows them to work to their full potential.
So
Yeah,
Seth and Jane, quick question.
Yeah.
Without giving away your secret sauce, how
okay,
does this
it's okay.
different compare to something like structural integration, Rolfing, and or normal massage type techniques?
Well, there's a number of differences. Firstly, we leave the client completely clothed, so there's no having to disrobe for it. It is a protocol that is done exactly the same way, no matter who the person is that's on the table. And lots of trained medical professionals kind of go, oh, I don't think I like that idea very much. That's why it works, though. These are all medically recognized techniques that we use. It's the order that they're put in that makes them unique. So we literally start at the bottom, at your feet. We open the joints and stretch the muscles and work through the body from the feet all the way up to the head and then out through the arms. So it's a full body protocol. It looks at absolutely everything. It's a brilliant assessment tool. So myself, my own background is in cranial sacral work and a Reiki master. So I was more into the energetic a lot too. But what this allows you to do is to work through the entire body, bring it into balance, and then it kind of gives you the idea of where else you might want to add to it. It's used a lot by a lot of different bodywork professionals. If it's done first and that body is balanced out, it makes whatever work you're doing just so much easier. So if you're doing massage afterwards, it's so much easier on the practitioner rather than having to work so hard to relax tense muscles. The body starts to do it itself.
Mhm.
It creates the scenario where the body is then allowed or able to heal itself, because really that's what our bodies are designed to do. We just need to have the right environment for them to be able to do that in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question. Hi. Oh,
Hi,
I
Kelly.
just froze a little bit. Okay, no, here we go. I'm back. It keeps freezing occasionally over on this side. Well, I had a network chiropractor work on me a while back, and I think he was skilled in what you do, because when I was reading about it, I thought, you know what, I think I've had this done. And a lot of network chiropractors, they integrate all kinds of different modalities. And I was on the table and experiencing a lot about what I had read with your modality, and I had an amazing release. And this particular network chiropractor had 12 different tables in a circle, and he worked on everybody because he believed that we all are healing together. And he dealt with a lot of trauma. So if somebody's going through something extremely traumatic, and whether it be crying or even screaming and letting things out, it was working through all of us, and he was making sure that energy did not get stuck in any of us, no matter what was going on. So it was a very different kind of thing. But I experienced, and I would go to him frequently because I was actually on a monthly payment program, so I could show up 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, whatever. And I got a lot of relief from what was going on, but I saw shifts very, very quickly. So I'm just thinking that he was doing this. So when I was reading about it and seeing, and you guys make it so affordable too. I don't know how you do that, which is great, because those of us that have to come in and fly from, overseas, that's really amazing that you do that. And so I'm really looking forward to learning more, and I'm sure that you have so many success stories with this. So it's just good to hear them.
Speak to chiropractor.
Well, Kelly, we're anxious for you to come over here to Scotland and learn it. But the good news is that we have started to train other people how to teach it. So we actually do have some teachers over in America now, in the US, New Jersey, Philadelphia. We've got some set up there, Indiana.
Oh, I'm from Indiana.
Okay.
Well, where in Indiana? Because it could be my chiropractor.
We've now got a website with a lot of pins on which you can check out, and it'll tell you, because to be honest, what is such a success story for us is that one of the things we had to realize, and we've been working for the last 3 or 4 years, guys, is, two to many doesn't work.
No.
And so I've worked with Jane. I'm an educationist for years and years. I've traveled the world, transformational education, all that. Jane had to let go. But can this be taught in the way that Hugh did it? And so we've created the programs, and of course, we've made them as affordable, as inexpensive as possible to realize Hugh's vision and dream. But bit by bit, as you can imagine, we got to the point where we've got to let go. Other people have to teach this. It has to go into the world. People must go into the world and teach this. There were a few arm wrestles over the last 3 or 4 years. There were a few coming and goings. But the good news, Kelly, is that we've got amazing teachers and accredited practitioners, which means that there's thousands of practitioners now, but it means when they come back, we can endorse and support them because there's legal requirements about that. But out in the world, we're just speaking to some of the other modalities. There was a huge test, and I'll ask Jane to speak to this a little bit, done in America, where there was over 3,500 case studies for a big, it's photo, wasn't it? So
Yeah, we worked with one of the therapeutic outcomes organizations over there that's based in America. And we had the opportunity of having 25 of our KCR practitioners here in Scotland help us with this. So each one of the clients that came in was asked to answer a list of questions. And then all the information was fed directly into the database that Photo has. And it was compared against, I think at that time there were about 15 million cases in the database. And it was compared against that. And so what would happen is it would spit out an answer telling you, okay, if we're taking this person's age into consideration, their fitness, all the whole story of this person, their injury, how long is it going to be before we can see this person back at pre-injury condition again? So we were consistently hearing things that it should take between 10, 11, 12 treatments, somewhere in that sort of a vicinity. So we put our data in there as well, and we consistently came out with an average of about 1.6 treatments, which is a phenomenal change.
we broke them though, didn't we?
We did a little bit. They did not at that time have provision for people getting ready or getting back to normal in one treatment. So they had to rewrite their database for us. But anyway, we consistently came over a 2-year test. We came up with those kind of results.
Tell them why Hugh had a hissy fit.
So at one point, this kind of tells you a little bit about what
Perfectionist.
Perfectionist is a mild understatement. This was his life work. It was his passion. He loved it on a level that few people can love something. We got one of our reports back, and it was talking about how we compared to the rest of the modalities that were being used in there. And all the way down the scale, we showed 99%, 99, 99, 99. Well, when he got that report, he absolutely howled to the point that I went running through to that room to see what could possibly be wrong. And he's like, how is it that we're only at 99? Why are we not at 100? What is wrong here? So I had to settle the thing by calling over to head office of Photo and saying to them, why are we only at 99%? What's happening here? They kind of laughed at us as they said, well, you're being compared to everybody else. The highest you can get is 99%. You can't be better than yourself. So that was the point at which Hugh was able to finally relax and go, we did it.
Well, two things I want to say to that. I'm jumping in here. One is, wow, allopathic medical practitioners are going to be so pissed, right? They can't charge tons. It's their problem. But then also alternative practitioners who enjoy getting the money and enjoy repetitive sessions will also be off. So I'm just very tickled over here.
Well, do you know what? The interesting thing about it, Liz, is it doesn't work that way for those who are practitioners. The fear is, oh my goodness, I'm only going to have to see these people 1.6 two times.
Of course.
But can you imagine how word spreads?
I was going to say word of mouth.
Oh yeah,
You've gone for how many years?
Correct. I'm just saying fear-based systems, like you're saying, people are like, oh no.
Yeah.
But how better it is to just spread it and spread the love and let let source just, take
Oh,
care of prep.
exactly, Liz. I so
Mhm.
agree. And we know there are shadowy sides in the medical profession of getting repeats and getting you to sign up for long blocks and things. However, one of the beauties about KCR and the reconnecting from all energy workers to the body is the body actually gets knocked out of balance quite a lot. And because a lot of people do extreme sports or extreme things or extreme repetitive things. And what happens is, of course, you're going to come back and come back. I love walking and jumping up and down hills and things. Well, I've done one mountain. And then, I'm lucky because if my SI joint goes out, I just go, Jane, I need a KCR. She goes, you had one last week. I said, yeah, but I went up a mountain. So there are things that we start to have a new relationship with our physical body, I think. And so for all practitioners, you've got a different relationship. In this country, we call it an MOT. It's a test when your cars come in to be assessed if they're okay to be on the road. It's a little bit like, I'm bringing my body in. Is my body okay? Can I keep going? Go, yeah, put it through the process. It's fine now. Off you go. And I think you build a different relationship up. It's kind of like your body's okay now. Let's keep working. And then there is something which we do have a little bit further down the journey here. There is another paradigm shift, which I think a lot of your listeners might enjoy from the energetic aspect, is that we then we then take people beyond KCR into connective tissue, myofascia, but we work in the same heart place of creating intuitive therapists, intuitive healers, which we're very I suppose we're very what's the word term? It's really important to us. And you guys are all heart-based people. You know this is how you work. And so we've got some techniques which Jane might want to just give a little bit about, which about from her journey, her lineage with working with some of the indigenous people, but it's about then moving forward. So once you have used KCR and then you enter into becoming an intuitive healer and you can read and sense what's happening within the body, then there's a whole other range of things. And I think, Kelly, you spoke to when trauma is held in the body. Although KCR is going to balance the body and releases a lot of trauma, there can also be other things that have been hung on to, that precious wound, if you'd like, which need to be released. But do you want to speak to that, Jane?
Well, I think we all know that when we bring our physical body into balance or do anything on us physical, it affects our spiritual, our mental, emotional bodies as well. So, although KCR is a very physical protocol, and that's kind of our start place, it allows us then to open to a whole different world of healing in a spiritual way, in an emotional way, and in an energetic way. And that's kind of the path that we take people down as we walk them down what we refer to as our pathway to bodywork mastery. We start to allow people to understand the importance of our heart energy and being in our heart and being in the right space as a therapist when we're working with people. We can take that out into our everyday life, into the world that we live in. It doesn't really matter what our job description is. If we can come from our heart, everything just works so much better. And so we spend a lot of time teaching people that. We teach people how to expand their energy. We work with, a lot of my training comes from working with the Hawaiian people, helping us to learn how to expand our energy, how to stay in the highest vibration possible while we're in that heart energy and working with our clients and how that can affect our clients. And that's a really kind of the basis of a lot of our more advanced, what we refer to as our more advanced training.
But of course, we have to remember that, like you guys and the listeners, a lot of people come to us with no spiritual, energetic, or even physiological, anatomy, physics background at all. We've had people completely changing careers because they've experienced KCR and they want to do it. They have no frame of reference for that. And so KCR is so beautifully simple that a 12-year-old, I would say 16, we do stop at 16,
age, yeah,
can do it with the assurance if they do it correctly, it will work. And then, so what I'm saying, Kelly, is then, things, then it's an assessment tool for any modality, it brings it back in, and then you go, or then you would bring in your specific modalities. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
I think,
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jane and Seth,
Makes
how
sense.
do people best prepare for a session, and how long do they tend to take?
When you first come in for a KCR session, generally speaking, we allot about an hour. It takes a little while to kind of have some conversation, get somebody onto the table,
Case notes.
explain it a little bit. We make sure that everybody's comfortable. They realize that, and I think this is one of the most important things of this particular methodology, is the client on the table is always in control. So they can say stop at any point that they'd like to. Whenever they are feeling that that's enough, they say stop. So we always work within the limitations of whoever's on that table for us. So it takes about an hour to work through it. I wouldn't say there's any particular preparatory work that needs to be done apart from appearing in loose, comfortable clothing is what we do request. And drinking lots of water afterwards too is
But you can't say that
important.
in America.
Oh, no,
No,
we can't. We
you
have to be
can't.
careful what we say where. Yeah, hydration is an important part of the healing process for the body.
Do
Yeah,
people
just
also-
to embellish.
Sorry,
Yeah,
John.
so- yeah, I was just saying, as you're alluding to, one of the next steps after you've done the level 1 training is connective tissue release, and that begins to get into the energy work. And I had an incredible experience during the training, which I found very amusing because. Would you mind if I explain this, or
Go right
would
ahead.
you rather I
ahead.
didn't?
John, we trust you.
Just asking. It may have been proprietary information. That was all. Essentially, we stood together in a group and we went through the kinetic tissue release. And what I found so funny was that I absolutely experienced it. I experienced what you'd stereotypically be meant to experience. And what was interesting was that I was completely conscious of what I was going through emotionally as an observer. And what was funny was that Jane was explaining the process of what you would imagine to go through as I was going through it real time. So I was sobbing my eyes out, and she was saying, "You begin to sob your eyes out." And I was like, "Yep, got it." Sobbing
That's
my eyes out.
right, you did.
And then almost immediately, as she said, "Then you begin to giggle," I started giggling. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is very funny." And I was like, I'm not a plant. This has actually happened. And it really did. It was just amazing.
Exactly. And that's one of the things. The other things is postural energetics. Guys, I don't open the whole box here, but it's like there's a self, which Jane could tell you, what Jane should tell you about. There's a whole self-help aspect within this as well, which is called postural energetics, which is about, as you experience in a short place, was coming into connection with an awareness, an intuitive awareness with your own connective tissue. And it's so powerful.
I'll
Yeah, so
just speak.
possibly described as the equivalent of the mycoma of the body.
Sure, absolutely. It's wrapped around every single part. It's microscopic. Consciousness, scientists believe, exists in it. Emotions do. It releases light. You've got water movement. It's on a very subtle level. And it can hold, I think, as you are releasing the trauma just by experiencing. It's not that aberrant reaction of having to revisit trauma, but just when you place with the lightness of a feather, your awareness upon your body goes, "Oh, thank you. And I can release now." And you go, "Yeah, go on then." And it does. And a little story for me, when I first came to this, I was skeptical, and it took Jane a long time to allow me to get this, actually. I was a bit resistant, right? I thought it was learnt reaction or something, But once I got there, and she went, "Yeah, I told you, Seth." A friend of ours, and also one of our trainers, was working in his office, and I keep it simple so he's not identified here. And someone came in and threatened to kill him. He'd never met this person before. He had no idea why. And I think this person probably just had a psychotic episode. So, of course, once the police had been called and gentleman taken away and etc., his boss kindly said to him, "Would you like to go home?" And he went, "Yeah, please," and went home. He went home, and about an hour later, he called me and told me what had happened. But the first thing he did, as soon as he got home, he went and stood in what we describe as posture energetics, in this state of awareness of his connective tissue, and literally allowed his body to release everything that it experienced. And so
Wow.
he didn't need to think through what had happened or to have a concept about it. The body just said, he knew the body can take care of you, just let this happen. And off it went, off it went, off it went. So by the time he called me, he was telling me about, yes, guy came in, tried to kill me. It's a bit of a day, really, And when I came across this, I've been working in studying like neuroscience, etc., and parasympathetic sympathy. You guys know all this about how the body releases. And it really chimed with me that we don't need to go back into trauma. But what
Yeah.
I couldn't believe was there's so much consciousness in the body that the body just goes, "I've got this, kid. I'm releasing it. You don't need to revisit that, by the way. It's now gone." And okay, the emotions come out afterwards, like, "Oh, thank God," it comes out afterwards. But I have now not only been blessed to learn this, and as a drummer, my hands release like this madly after the trauma of a live gig. But I've seen, and John, that was beautiful to witness, time and time and time again, once the body's in balance, huge releases and safe releases where we're not triggering memory, etc. So yeah, thanks for sharing.
You know what I'm seeing is oh, sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
No, go ahead. No,
Um,
because I just go ahead.
yeah. So I was going to say, Seth and Jane, I've long thought that consciousness in part may land in the body, if you will. First of all, I think mind is non-local to the body, but through the connective tissue. So what I think you guys are working with is you're working right at the interface of where consciousness meets the body, the
Absolutely.
physical meat suit we're in. So that's lovely.
I think it's a blow me away. As you said, Liz, this very, very subtle area where consciousness meets. So it's not mind, body, spirit. It's not even mind, body, it's body, mind. And we don't need to be conceptually present. The body, what I feel, is the body has got this. It remembers how to return to its state of perfection. Okay, my state of perfection is a 59-year-old man that's been around the block a bit, but is going to return to the state of absolute balance. And what a relief. How much time have I spent in my life going through all kinds of therapeutic kind of understandings of my trauma and this? I didn't know you could just ask your body's wisdom to do this, which of course Jane has also met, and a lot of us have probably met in indigenous wisdom. So, it's not like we haven't known this for thousands and thousands of years, but maybe it's a different way of expressing it.
That's
And
lovely. Go ahead, Kelly. And then I want to open up questions.
I was just going to say that kind of circles around to what I was going to ask when you were talking about indigenous wisdom. As a former resident and someone who worked with the Aina on Maui for 2 years, I'm really interested in your work with the Hawaiian people and how that expanded what you're doing.
Well, there's a whole nother conversation.
Oh, I'm
Kelly,
sure. Yeah,
as
if you can just
know.
briefly,
But briefly, we have done, my late husband Hugh and I did a lot of work over the years with many, many of the different kahunas and teachers over in Hawaii. And a lot of concepts that the Hawaiians taught us were incorporated in the work that we do, not in the KCR protocol. That was Hugh's creation, but in the more advanced classes that we teach, where we take you into the connective tissue or myofascial, which we use those two terms interchangeably, into the spiritual part of it, into the energy expansion, all of that sort of thing, very much comes from the wisdom of the indigenous people, particularly the Hawaiians. So we've woven that through the training that we have, along with the understanding of what's happening in the body and the connective tissue. And it's a beautiful, beautiful blend.
It's kind
It
of
really is.
sorry. It's kind of that place of you talked about Liz, sorry, about when the body, mind, and everything comes together. It's almost like there is scientific wisdom that we have, and there's also this ancient wisdom and realization that we have. And do you know what? It can come together. So when we're teaching the techniques, they're still based in empirically observable science. But what's happening is you're transforming, I believe, Kelly, your own intuitive connection in all that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does anyone else here have any questions? Well, folks,
It's
this
been lovely.
yeah,
This has
guys,
been great.
Kelly,
You're
yes,
so
you're
sweet.
so right. John, thank you for bringing these lovely folks on. I just want to say there's 8.5 billion of us here on the planet. And I feel as the vibrations rise in the entire solar system, like so many new, beautiful and gorgeous and powerful, important modalities are coming to light. And many of value, maybe lesser value, more value. But I'm so pleased that your Hugh brought forth KCR for us and that you're continuing it forward because like my practice over here can't take care of 8.5 billion people, nor probably can yours, except you. And it's going to take all of us. And so we just thank you so much for coming. Thank you, everyone. And we will, this has been so
Liz,
lovely.
just before we go,
Yes.
do we want to let the audience know how they can get in touch with?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
So we have a beautiful website, please let it be beautiful, called www.kcracademy.com, and everything you need you can find in that. And also, if you want to find one of our beautiful accredited practitioners or trainers, we've got a brand new map which is working great with pins and you can find in your area. And as more of our practitioners go through this process, more and more people become visible. And so, yeah, and if you want to take the courses, it's all on there. And I think in a couple of clicks, you can find out everything you need.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well said. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Seth and Jane. And we will see everybody soon.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much for inviting us
Take
on.
care. Lovely to meet you.
Bless you
Thank
guys.
you. Thank you.
Bless you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.